Well, hello Arish, Falcha, good music at Madden's. We're back in the snug. I'm Lynette Fay. I am a broadcaster, worked for years with BBC Radio, and I've always been an advocate of the Irish language, of culture, of music, and the arts. And in this podcast, I'm lucky enough to invite members of the traditional music family. Big family in Ireland and right across the world. And they all come in here in the snug upstairs in Madden's Bar in Belfast for a chat. And we couldn't make the podcast without the help of our sponsors. And today's podcast is sponsored by Pizza Works, best pizza in North Belfast, and by Madden's Bar itself. And you'll hear more about what happens here in Madden's every single day of the week as the podcast goes on. But if you'd like to be a sponsor, do get in touch with us, music@maddens@gmail.com, or drop us a DM on Instagram, and you can follow us on all platforms as well. Please do. And the podcast drops every Monday on Spotify and on YouTube. Please leave comments, leave questions. You're more than welcome to do so. And we just want you to be part of our Music at Madden's community. So come on in. And this week in the snug here on Music at Madden's, I'm delighted to say that we are joined by a warrior woman from the border of Armagh and Monaghan, the one and only Dani Larkin. Hello, Dani. How are
What an
you?
introduction, Lynette.
You see, it all goes back to that, your first album, Notes of a Maiden Warrior. And it was always that idea of you, I don't know, that you're a bit of a warrior, I think, when it comes to challenging songwriting and challenging ideas through your work. But we'll get to that. But I thought today, whenever we had you, first of all, I wanted to say happy St. Bridget's Day.
Yes.
Fáilte na féile bríide ort agus brat bríide oring. We're recording on St. Bridget's Day. And again, that's another really lovely reference there, because you were in that album, you've referenced Macha in your native Armagh. And then to see Saint Bridget breed the pagan warrior, how she's been taken on by a wider cohort now. It's just amazing to see, isn't it?
It's incredible. I was actually at Foggart this morning and got a blessing with the relic this morning.
You were not. I got goosebumps.
Yeah. And
what brought you there?
Well, many things. I actually took Bridget as my confirmation name. You're getting all the good secrets today, Lynette. And I remember my uncles teasing me, being like, "Oh, Bridget, it's so..." They probably didn't use the words like "it's so old-fashioned." They probably said something way cooler than that, because that's what uncles do when you're 10 or 11. But I remember them teasing me, being like, "Oh, that's Auntie Bridie," almost quite in a negative connotation. And there was something within me that I was like, "No, that's it. It's just a very simple, straightforward, that's what I'm choosing for my confirmation name." And I suppose with Notes for Maiden Warrior, that kind of cycle and that kind of folklore really started to settle into maybe who I was becoming, who I am now. And so Foggart, that's probably my fourth time at Foggart in the past maybe 5 years or so. And I was coming up the road from Limerick, and I'd stopped off in Meath, and I was like, "Look, I can't..."
You were drawn to it?
Yeah, I can't not, it's just on the side of the road, so nearly fell into the well when I was getting water, which, probably wouldn't have been a bad thing either. Who knows what magic I would have come out with. And I got into the chapel for the first time. There's like a wee small, I'm not even sure if it is usually a chapel. It almost feels more like an oratory.
Yeah.
And I'd never been in there before, so the doors were open, and there was this woman just standing in the middle of the room, blessing people with a relic. And I was like, whoa, if this was some kind of, quest and you met a woman on the road, you certainly wouldn't just walk on past her. So yeah, really incredible day, actually, I think about it.
Anyone listening or watching who isn't familiar with Foggart and where it is, it's just outside Dundalk, and St. Bridget she's associated with that area. Said that's where she was born. But how does it feel when you walk up there onto that hill? It's on a hill, and it's covered in trees. There's a well, there's a stream. Then there's a graveyard and an older well up at the top of the hill of Foggart. There's an energy there that's very difficult to describe unless you experience it yourself.
Yeah, and two very different energies in the two places.
Yes.
For me, it's funny. like I was up in the graveyard first, and that's where Brian Brew was said to be buried, and I think that's the oldest grave in my grave checkbook. I love a good graveyard, and anytime I'm on tour on the road, I try to kind of seek out graveyards. They're quite quiet, and it's just a little thing that I like to do. People like lighthouses. I like graveyards. So I think Brian Brew's grave is my oldest that I'm aware of. And actually, if I'm being completely honest, the first couple of times I was in that graveyard, I found it quite heavy. And today it was light. It was all light. And that's a really beautiful thing to walk away from. And then down at the kind of shrine area where, I think there's the Stations of the Cross, and then there's the river that runs along it. And I really am drawn to the water, actually, is the biggest kind of thing for me. And it is, I mean, it's just like all of the kind of incredible places that we have all over the island. As soon as you kind of step into them or you cross that threshold, the world starts to open up a little, and that's probably quite different for everyone. But yeah, it brings me great joy.
Yeah. And it's a special area, I imagine, for someone who was brought up in that border region, because Fahart, you're intertwining in between Louth, Armagh, the whole way across. Then you get to Armagh, Monaghan, and the Oriel Strip, as it is, that old ancient area and kingdom almost as it was. Do you find, since you've really leaned into your music, your songwriting, that has given you a greater sense of where you're from and who you are?
Definitely who I am. And I suppose whenever Notes for Maiden Warrior came out, that was 2021. And
This was your first
and that was
album?
my first record. And everyone was in the throes of Brexit and, for the first time maybe thought about the fact that there's a border on the island. But for me, that was very much just part of who I
Your
was
everyday,
and my
wasn't it?
everyday, like in the same way that the city is part of everybody's everyday who grew up here, that kind of almost liminal space, that kind of, I would say, lawlessness almost, because, you've two not remarkably different sets of rules, but quite different sets of rules depending on, if you're 10 minutes this way over the border or 10 minutes that way. And I think within me growing up, and definitely more so as an adult, you kind of realize, well, those rules aren't set in stone. Actually, anything is possible, and you can push those rules. Maybe some of us on the border push them a little more than others in different ways. But I think that for me, I always feel a lot more at home and a lot more comfortable when I'm hanging out with border people, regardless of where the border is. And also when I'm in those in-between spaces, because for me, they're the realms of possibility,
That's where there lies a bit of excitement in that space, doesn't there?
Yeah, like nothing, it's in constant flux. Nothing is quite settled. Everything is possible. And almost for me, when I'm releasing records, there's almost that cycle of possibility, and then it's out into the world. And so for me, that little cycle, that little part of the cycle that rests in possibility for a short period of time, that's like the exciting part,
Yeah. And like, it's not as if you weren't in touch with where you were from when you were growing up, because you were. And to be specific, you're from Madden in County Armagh. And like, anybody who follows GA knows that the men's senior team won the county championship for the first time last year in 2025. And that was a huge deal. And the partying went on, and you had the Grimley brothers, the brilliant story there of that family's pain, bringing them to that point, everybody buying in, with them 100% of the way, and you could see what it meant to the community. And just before we were preparing to chat today, you were telling me you played camogie, and I didn't know that.
I did. Now, I try to keep these secrets a wee bit close to the heart, Lynette, for I wouldn't want everybody to know.
Exclusive.
But yeah, for one brief period of my time, I played county for Armagh for a very brief period of time, as my family will tell you, as my younger sister will tell you. It was like, oh, it could have went well if it wasn't for that injury, but the music got a hold of me, and that kind of pulled me in a different direction. But I love having a puck about, I don't play or train for any team, but the hurls are always in the back of the car. So even on tour, like there'd be times I'd been on tour with Ye Vagabonds and we'd just pull up a beach and have a puck about, so it's become something that's maybe less formal, but definitely still community and definitely more like part of my everyday, which is
Yeah.
a really nice transition to make,
Well, also, not everybody can say I played county. That's a big deal, to be honest with you.
Ugh, no. I mean, I would, well, okay, yep, I'll
Dani,
accept
take
that.
it. And honestly, I think for your next gig, I would suggest that maybe a T-shirt. I
Okay,
played
I play
county.
county.
It will get a reaction from the
Oh.
audience for sure. It's a good story.
Do you think I could sell them?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Would I have to put them in the Armagh colours, or what do you think?
You could do, yeah. Well, you know what Armagh people are like. They're crazy for the county. So yeah, you do.
And rightly so, rightly so.
Merch, you're welcome. There you are, Dani. You're welcome.
Can't believe I'm taking gay advice from a grown woman, but here we are. Here
I
we
can't
are.
believe I'm giving you the ideas free for gratis, like absolutely free of charge. Sure, along the side of Coppers and Dublin, don't we have I played county? That's the big chat up line. Like, Dani,
I'm missing a trick. I'm
all
missing a
these
trick.
years. I know you're happily settled now, but all those years, you missed a trick.
Look, where were you, Lynette, when I needed you? Really, I think that's the thing. But it's a good crack. You're good.
But it's
crack.
funny there because I didn't know that about you, that you were a camogue, and it's just further heightened my opinion of you, to be honest, because that's a talent. It's a serious talent, and the music as well, though, it is in you, and that sense of identity it always comes to the fore in everything you do. You're always asking questions about it.
I think that's it. And I have many people to thank for that, but my granddad is an incredible man, and as well as Madden win the championship last year, there was also a book published called The Madden Times, and it's kind of the first ever book. Can't believe I'm really gushing about this, but it's the first ever book kind of published of Madden as an area, and all of the families and all of the businesses and all of the folklore. And there was a launch of that just in December. And I went to it. It was down in the Armagh City Hotel, and my granddad performed a monologue. Now, he used to play in the show bands in the 70s, and he still plays trombone.
Give your granddad name check.
Michael Smith, the absolute legend. He lives just up the road from the Grimleys, on the kind of, it's a small community. But, I used to, on Saturdays from about the age of 10 to 14, like, I would say work is a loose term, maybe hang out with my granddad, and he would, try to get me to work. Like, I would either try to be laying blocks or planting trees or whatever kind of jobs he had on a Saturday, I would help him with. And that really, as I've got older, as I kind of moved away and I started leaning into music more as my full-time way in the world, his way, which is very gentle and very true and very about what's important, which is the music and the family and the love and the kindness and welcoming people regardless into that space. And I think those things just live on generation to generation, and I'm grateful that I was surrounded by that growing up. And I think maybe at the time I took a lot of it for granted and would assume that maybe other people had as much love in their life as I did. And as I maybe, grew up and went to uni, I realized that not everybody had that love. And I think for me now, the biggest thing is showing up for yourself and who you are in all of those complexities, remembering where you come from, and welcoming people who've just arrived or who didn't get to experience that love in their life, And music does that all very easily. And I get to walk through the world in that way, and I think that's just class,
But it's class that you have the ability to see all your experiences with that depth. And even when you said there, I got to hang out with my granddad. That's so cool. Because they do leave a mark on you. I remember my granddad would have left his mark on me, and from the fact that I would have gone on road trips with him. Roads give me a curiosity about place and history and wondering about places, and tying them all together, make it the map, this network and the map all came together, and it's something that I've taken into my work. So you can see that with your experience there with your granddad and with your community in Madden. And I suppose it's at times like this when a small place wins a county championship for the first time, that sense of pride, everything that has been maybe bubbling under the surface for your whole life, it finds somewhere to go, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, I mean, I really have to be honest, like, I can't take any credit for Madden winning the county championship, but it's incredible.
Yeah.
And that joy and that love and that celebration. And I think that togetherness and that belonging is something that our culture in terms of sports and music does really well. And you show up day in, day out. Now, we did chat earlier, but I'll not bring it to the fore about Derry and Tyrone. But regardless, we show up for our team, whoever they are.
Yeah.
And we're in it together. And my ones actually tease me quite a lot because I wear a Derry jacket from time to time that has come into my possession.
You don't.
I do. And I'm, it's okay, Lynette. It's okay.
You're bigger. You are a bigger person than I.
I think I just maybe the practical side of my head of that's a very warm coat kicks in a wee bit stronger. But my mum said to me this morning, she was like, oh, you're a turncoat for wearing a Derry jacket. And I was like, oh, this is ridiculous. Like, this is just a cozy jacket and belonged to someone who passed away last year and who brought a lot of love and light into this world. So I wear it with pride.
You can't knock that.
Yeah.
You can't knock that. And it strikes me, Dani, that as you get older, that is, I suppose, that deeper meaning, asking deeper questions of life is really informing your music as you go. Like you started off with notes of a Maiden Warrior. Well, before that came the phenomenal single Samson and Goliath, which really was your breakthrough, wasn't it? It got you noticed.
Yeah, and it's a Belfast love song, really. It's a love song to Belfast and how Belfast has held me and given me, encouraged the things that maybe I lost within myself over time. And Belfast kind of encouraged those out. So for Samson and Goliath, it's a real underdog song. I still sing it every gig. Whenever I'm touring far away, I always kind of dedicate it to the people of Belfast. I don't really know what else to say about that other than like I also worked in Titanic Visitor Centre for a while, and the cranes were very like visual, informative.
Yeah, they're winking at you every day.
Yeah, well, they're like, hear any word in that song, or what are you doing working there, and you're not writing this song yet,
I should explain there. Samson and Goliath are the names of the big yellow Harland and Wolff cranes that well, you can see them in the Belfast skyline, and they're a part of the Belfast skyline. I'm never sure which is which though, and I can never answer that question for my 6-year-old daughter. So maybe could you help me with that one, Dani?
Yeah, I definitely can, but I wouldn't trust what I'm about to say because it could be a fib.
Okay.
Which
let's go with it.
Yeah, that's how I spoke to everyone in the Titanic Visitor Centre, but don't tell them that. You're just making up things, really. I am almost certain that Wolf is the smaller one and Harland is the bigger one.
Okay.
There's not that much difference. There could be maybe 10 feet, but there could also be 50 feet.
So that could be the Samson and the Goliath.
Let's just say that it is.
It could be in those terms. We just had people walking in, opened the doors there, just come on ahead in for the crack there to see what was going on up here. There's a bright light, it's getting darker, and people are attracted to see what's going on up here in the snug and Maddens.
This moth to flame, Lynette,
This is it. This is it. Oh, here, they just plough on in, slurries. But that's the kind of house this is, isn't it?
Well, you have to love it. An open door.
That's it. Open door policy. Open door policy. But yeah, so Samson and Goliath was the song that got you noticed and got your voice noticed, got radio play. And then your debut album, Notes for a Maiden Warrior, came then in 2021. I couldn't believe that was 5 years ago.
I know. It's extraordinary.
Really?
You know, I mean, in that time, I have toured like Australia, South Korea, North America, Finland, Germany, Portugal, across the water, and here. So I have definitely been busy and running about and
The
collaborated.
stories, the songs have travelled. Have
The
travelled well
songs
for
have
you.
traveled. Yeah, it really has. And like, you know, how do you explain to like 1,000 people in South Korea what a song is about when you really don't speak any Korean? And I think that's kind of the power of music, you know? Like I had someone come up to me after one of the gigs at the festival and they were like, I'm going to phone the police. And I was like, oh shit, like, what have I done? They were like, you must have stolen your voice from an angel in heaven. Right. So
there's the second shout out line of the podcast.
maybe we should have a side project, Lynette. I should have prefaced this conversation with...
I just have visions of your merch table now with all these t-shirts and badges.
Oh, bless us and take care of us all, especially me in this troubled time. Bridget, come and save me. I think I should have prefaced that with very heartfelt, genuine people, or my experience of it, like very sincere.
Yeah.
You know, whereas if someone said that here and your response was completely, a really great example of this is we would be like, oh, catch yourself on, you know, really in fits of laughter. And I didn't know how to respond because I could see that this person was
sincerity
so moved,
with it.
and so sincere. And I was like, I am not trained. Nothing in my life has trained me for this moment, you know. But I wasn't arrested, and I think that's that's the goal.
But the reason I'm thinking that perhaps that person said that to you, and also your songs, particularly in that album, and we'll get on to your new album, which is just out this weekend, but there are a couple of, it goes through the motions, and and you've done the same thing actually with the new album, where there's that trilogy. There's a start meaning, a middle meaning, and an end meaning, and with those songs comes a feeling, and feelings are universal, and everybody can feel that.
Yeah, and isn't that class? You know,
Wasn't
really,
love was the central thing for
Notes. Yeah. So love, it was really, and there was like 3 love songs: Love Part 1, 2, and 3, and I still, Samson and Goliath and Love Part 3 are still part of my set when I play them live, you know, and not, you know, and really expanding on kind of the concept of love or how we think about it. I think culturally, quite often in the West, we think of love as romantic love between 2 people, and that's kind of where it starts and ends. And for me, I really wanted to explore all of the different facets of that, and you know, love for oneself, and then who we become when we love ourselves. And that is still something that is quite radical to me. You know, like I'm not always, I couldn't say hand on heart that I'm always able to be as kind to myself as I am to other people, but I definitely try to, you know.
That was the essence of the Love Part 3
Yeah.
song, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was getting to the point where you loved yourself.
Yeah.
Because I thought that was an amazing message for a young woman to put out there as well in a debut body of work.
Yeah. And it's, you know, it's hard one. You know, it's all of that.
Especially in this world where we live, where everything's so materialistic and based on more and more, unfortunately, based on how you look and how you come across.
Yeah.
It was just a really positive message, I thought, Dani.
Yeah. Oh, thanks, Lynette. You know, I think for me, I can't argue with the music. The music arrives, and then it's my job to, you know, follow it and share it and take care of it. You know, someone said to me the other day with Next of Kin, which is the new record, like, you've really taken care of this, you know, before it's really been released. And I really did, and I really have. And
This week's episode of Music at Madden's is brought to you by Pizza Works, North Belfast's #1 independent pizza shop, and one of my favourites, I can honestly say. It's an unfussy restaurant and it whips up classic and signature pizzas. There's chicken wings, goujons, all the dips, and all done with personality as well. Speedy delivery or collection 7 days a week, and you can follow on socials. Pizza Works, North Belfast. This week's episode of Music at Madden's is brought to you by Madden's Bar itself, the home of trad in Belfast City, where you'll find live music 7 nights a week. And as well as that, let me tell you what other things go on here in Madden's. Wednesday night is dancing night, set dancing and step dancing. Thursday nights, it's Gaelic agus Pinty. Slow session on the first Monday of every month. There's a teenage session on the first Sunday of every month. Kids come as far as Dublin to take part in that session. We have the Sunday song concerts upstairs here where we record the podcast on the first Sunday of every month. Ishka Vilfarsche, the Whiskey Club, is on the second Monday of every month. And of course, the Music at Madden's podcast, which is recorded here at least once a month. And the proceeds of the podcast go towards the Madden's Bursary Scheme, providing summer school scholarships for children and teenagers to music schools, festivals and Irish language courses in the Gaeltacht. So keep up to date. Follow Madden's Bar on socials, particularly Instagram and TikTok, and follow Music at Madden's as well for the crack. Well, let's talk about the new album.
I thought you'd never ask.
How long have you been working on it?
Well, for 5 years. I was playing a gig. I did a gig in Stendhal just after Notes came out. So Notes came out in June 21. Stendhal was July 21. And of course, it was that time of COVID where, really difficult time to put out a record. But I'd just done a show at Stendhal, and I woke up the next morning in the tent and I said, my next record is Next of Kin. And I suppose from that point, that's kind of the defining point that I would say is when I started working on the record.
And you say that it's intended as a companion throughout stages of life. Did you wake up with that concept as well, or is that something that evolved?
That's something that evolved. I actually, look, I'm a real geek, and I have it in front of me. I'm dropping this off to a friend after. I'm very casual about it, Lynette, but I think there's something for me in the it's really weird to put your face on something. I know we've been talking about merch, but there's a kind of vulnerability to this that started the whole process of what it means to be a companion to yourself throughout your stages of life, and almost similar to Love Part 3, but a wee bit different of how do we truly be a companion to ourselves, not to maybe expect that companionship from other people, enjoy it and love it and revel in it, but that it's not an expectation or an obligation. And then also all of the things that come with that. This is a record that really starts in a period of the darkest before the dawn, you know. It starts with breath, and that's how I wanted it to begin.
Because you said it starts with darkness and conflict, and and there's 3 parts. It's a trilogy. So and again, that trilogy theme is there that you.
It comes through. Yeah, it's funny with the title as an example. That was a very wake up, clear cut. Oh, this is what it is, and then other things take 5 years to mature, and understand actually, or to reveal themselves. I think the thing with that kind of conflict for me is the world that we're in right now feels so fragmented and not even conflicting, but conflicted. We feel so far apart from each other. And it's so interesting to release 2 records over a period of time. When Notes came out, the world was absolutely, it felt like a different kind of crisis, but it felt like we were together, like we were all in it together. And I've noticed with putting Next of Kin out into the world now, it really feels like we're not together. And that was something I really had to deal with, because I got a lot of questions from a lot of people being like, what's your political opinion on this shooting in South America? And that is a very different starting point from, how can we create a better place here through music? Definitely giving away more than I thought I would today, Lynette, so you're doing a great job.
I'm not. I'm just sitting. I'm sitting here listening, and I'm really taken with everything you said. Like, and to think, in 5 years, so much. It feels like so much has changed. It feels like there's been such a massive shift, and you're right. It did feel like we were together, and now there does feel that sense of, it being the case quite being quite the opposite. Um, you start though with there are religious and traditional influences on this album. And you started off with Morning, which is your take on the hymn Morning Has Broken. Why was that and you said the breath, so you've gone from the breath to Morning Has Broken. Why the hymn, and why were you drawn to that?
Yeah, thank you for that question. This is also the first time I'm getting to really do a deep dive on the album, so it's really lovely and new for me. With Morning, so I opened a studio. Like, for me, I never studied music, and so everything I've had to teach myself and learn. One of the things I really wanted to do was to open a studio, and I did that. And when I sat down at the desk, the first song that came along was Morning. It was actually a kind of like a mashup, I suppose, of Morning Has Broken and O Roisin Vahawalia. And as time went on, I realized there were two big personalities in the room and I had to go with one, and Morning felt closer to who I was, who I am.
So you're not growing your wheel?
Maybe by the third record. Come back to me then.
Not right now.
Not in this moment. Not yet. Who knows what's to come? But I think that it was surprising that Morning was there. But also I sang in choirs. Like, my first introduction to music was in the folk club of Mass, which is really cheesy when I say it out loud. Like, I know lots of other songwriters have like prolific musical experiences, like Joni Mitchell, and that was the turning point. For me, it was singing hymns in Mass and Westlife, so
Key change.
quite literally, in many shapes and forms. And I still love Westlife. Just Westlife, if you're watching this, I will absolutely support you. Like, I will walk out on stage and I'll do a cover of your gig before you do the gig.
But you see, it's really interesting whenever you say about the folk mass and the songs in mass. Now, whenever you sing them and you go back to them, is it almost like just wrapping yourself in the biggest quilt and blanket because there's a comfort in it?
No. I think I really had to work to make those spaces my own.
Right.
As an adult. And that's what you hear in this version of Morning.
Yeah.
Because I think, how do I say this? With this whole record, like, I hadn't planned to put any traditional songs on the record. And now, in theory, we have 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 if you would count Caledonia. Yeah. We'll see what we get away with. I'm glad I have this in front of me, actually. But, I didn't grow up in the musical tradition or a traditional repertoire like maybe other families and people did. I didn't grow up with the language at the tip of my tongue in the same way that other people did. I rebelled against a religion that really makes faith very small for people. And for me, it's about faith. It's about faith in the music, faith in the work.
Faith in others, faith in the
in
world.
others, faith in ours. Like, absolutely we are living in a world that is conflicted, but I want to hope and believe and trust that there's more goodness in us than there is bad, to put it really like black and white. Because everything around us right now, all of the media, it seems like every time we open, our phone or whatever, we are living in the end of times, and we could be. There's also a song called Envidal on the record. But also I choose to believe that like there's more strength in our humanity and in our love for each other than there isn't. As hard as that is to do every day.
And that brings me to the field recordings that you discovered when you were making the album.
Yeah.
From a visit to Palestine in 2016.
Yeah.
You couldn't have forecast just how significantly worse the case was going to get from that point. So tell me about finding those recordings and then your decision to include those.
Yeah, well, like She Moved Through the Fur really wasn't going to be on the record. I said that about a lot of these, but I got a call. Someone asked me to audition for a film and they needed me to sing a traditional song. And I was looking at the works of Margaret Barry at the time. And I was like, oh, this is just stunning. And there's a version that she does where there's this long lamenting intro. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do that and submit it like kind of an audition tape. They never called me back, but I'll get used one day.
But it took you to Margie Barry and that song.
And that was, I think that's the real, that was the real reason I got the phone call, right? Was like, this song is supposed to be on this record. And it is a very, like, it's a 7-minute long piece and we perform it in full in the live set. So it builds with every verse. And I kept in 4 verses. People usually sing 3 and I made sure to make it 4 verses. So people really understood that actually what happens is, someone chooses to end their life, and we kind of, in a lot of our cultural psyche, we tend to brush over those things and, or not talk about them at all. And I certainly,
But particularly when that song is most often portrayed as being a love song.
Well, that's exactly when it's absolutely not. And so we were chatting.
There's a darkness and depth to it that you're bringing into its true form.
Well, thank you. I never thought about that. I think for me, that's just what felt right when I was doing it. And whenever I went in, so like I recorded it like in the studio with Ruth. We did 2 takes. We took the first take of it. That's the take you hear on the record. But then I was going through my laptop and came across the field recordings from Nablus in the West Bank in Palestine where I was. And it's just a recording of me working through the souk, walking through the market. And I was like, oh, all of a sudden, this recording makes sense and this song makes sense in a different kind of way. And then the 2 came together. And for me, it's placing that in the context of where it needs to be,
Can't imagine what it would have been like to just find those field recordings again. Just walking through the souk, everyday life. That's not there anymore. I think that's very hard hitting, to be very honest, and shows you how it's really important to document things when you're there in the moment and have that for however it's going to be used down the line. It is interesting that Danny Boy's in there. There's a version of Danny Boy. And I did want to mention Caledonia, and it's so interesting, isn't it, that that's not a traditional song. It's written by Dougie MacLean. The story goes that he started writing it in Brittany. He was out there with a few Irish people. He came home. They came back to Ireland with it, and apparently, as legend has it, he performed that song for the very first time in its entirety in the O'Neill household in the Moy in County Tyrone.
Wow, so I did not know that.
There's a real local connection with it as well. But what is it about that song that that speaks to you that you wanted to include it?
Yeah, I mean, with Caledonia, my auntie sang it. My auntie Jenny, who also gets a shout out. Because I haven't dropped her Christmas present over to her yet, so she gets an extra shout out. She's also my godmother, and also would be the maybe one in the family that would be the singer, maybe.
Right,
I was
okay.
certainly going to
Was that
get
her
myself
party piece?
into trouble. Look, we would all sing. We'd all give it a good go. I don't want to get into trouble here, so I'll end the sentence there. And I don't want to compare aunties and uncles. You know that slippery slope. But Jenny would have sang that song, and then it was maybe just before I was going to South by Southwest, which was 2022. I took myself off to Dunfanaghy for a few days and stayed in an apartment that was definitely haunted, but we'll not talk too much about that because one of my biggest fears is ghosts. Anyway, I was there. I brought my trumpet. I was reading Martin Hayes' autobiography that had just come out at the time, on my guitar, and that version of Caledonia arrived, and I love it. I just love it. It's almost like a sense of homecoming in the set. The tune that follows it actually is called Love and Liberation, and that was based off a video that I watched, like a man called Kwame Ture. He's a black activist. He's in the 70s. And there's a conversation between him and two white people where kind of this white man is like, you seem free. And Kwame says, no, I seem peaceful. And they're discussing the difference between what it means to kind of, hiya.
That might be the ghost.
Well, look, stranger things have happened. What it means, so you can still live in quite a violent, oppressive world, and for that to be called peace.
Yeah.
And that kind of difference between peace, freedom, and liberation. And that's why Love and Liberation, that's why the tune is called Love and Liberation after Caledonia. And when people come to the gigs as well, just when we were chatting about the kind of record as all the seasons of your life. And ultimately it's a record of belonging, and how do we find each other? How do we find our next of kin and create our families and our communities and our tribes over time? But with Love and Liberation, it's a real euphoric moment in the set because you've come, hopefully, on this journey that starts quite quiet and tight and dark. And it begins to open up as we move through the set. And by the time you're at Love and Liberation, people are up and they're dancing. And that's incredible.
The joy and the connections there.
Yeah,
because you do call the part 3 of the album this poignant homecoming.
Yeah.
You said that sense of a homecoming is a sense of celebration that you've found your destination in a way for now, maybe because life evolves, and that's where the journey takes us. Like you mentioned there, your live gigs, and I know that Notes of a Maiden Warrior took you. It opened up crazy doors for you. You ended up supporting household names all over the world. Just how has performing as the live performance, how has that shaped you as a musician over the last number of years, and having that exposure to bigger audiences?
Great question. I love writing songs, love singing songs. For me, the magic is in the room and it's palpable. And I've just come off the back of an in-store tour to celebrate the release of Next of Kin. And that's when you're in the room with like 30 or 40 people, and you compare that to like 8,000 people. They're vastly different experiences. And I don't think we really talk about them too much, in that as musicians, we have to really learn how to be in it all. We have to learn how to, both be okay and put our best foot forward in a room where you can see the whites of people's eyes, with 30, 40, 50 people, and in a space of 6, 8, 10,000 people where that sense of connection is very different. And I think I first learned that lesson in like 2019. I'd gone, like one night I'd supported Rufus Wainwright here at the Cathedral Quarter Arts Festival. And at that time, it was the biggest gig I ever did. And then I was supporting somebody else to 10 people in the basement of McHugh's the next night. And I just could, I really was like, how do I handle this?
Dealing with extremes.
Yeah, it's a real, and I would say touring life is very like that. I've really had to learn and constantly learn how to deal with extremes and still stay steady, still retain a sense of self, and still ultimately love what I do and connect with people when I'm on stage, because that's the thing for me. Like, making records is cool. I will always make records, and I love making records for and with other people as well. But for me, there's something transformational, inherently transformational, um, in a live gig where, like, when you walk in the door, something happens, music is played, you dance, you cry, you laugh, something, but you walk out the door a very different person. And, for me, it's my job as an artist and as a musician to create that for people, and to hopefully honor it. Good friend of mine, Frank Tate, he's a luthier down in Dublin. He built me this stunning guitar. The guitars on this, for any guitar nerds, are mostly double tracked. So it's acoustic guitar and then I play electric over the top. I also did all of the orchestral arrangements, which is like a very beautiful way to spend time. But Frank built me a guitar where it has an acoustic line out and an electric line out, and I run the electric line through a pedal board, and it's pushing those boundaries of songwriter and experimentation. And then I have the acoustic line as well. And so that's kind of what's different about the Next of Kin live shows that I'm really excited to explore. But Frank, we've become good friends over time. And he said, the people that are really doing this are the healers, And that sat with me for about 3 years, and I still haven't, it's still with me.
And is that because that sat with you and that stayed with you, is that how you want this album to be received? Do you see it as, putting healing out into the world?
I don't want to shut you down in any way, but no.
Right, okay.
I really don't have any thoughts or feelings on how I want it to be received. My experience of it is
it's done.
I pour all of my energy into this, my love, my every. Oh, the bell's stunning. Right on time. I had them do that before I came in. I love this record. I could not tell you all of the things and processes and tears that have gone into it. I couldn't count them. But what I can say is every creative curiosity, every whim, every thought has went into it with intention and attention. And for me, that's the success, that's the accolade, that's the wonder, that's the magic. The rest of it, if people, if it means something to somebody else ever, that's incredible in and of itself. But I love the work. It's cool to get a chance to live life in this way,
Well, I think you've certainly captured a moment in time, and most definitely in your own life and in your story as a songwriter and as a musician as well, Dani. And then no doubt you'll wake up in a couple of weeks' time with an idea for the next album.
I'll phone you first. I'll phone you first.
But can I say, it's been just lovely to talk to you today. Thanks so much for calling in to the Snug here in Music at Madden's. Dani Larkin, thank you for it.
What a pleasure. I played for county.